Yo, what is up, Uncharted listeners? Welcome back to the Uncharted podcast for men, where we hopefully provide a little guidance for you in the unforeseen territories of life. My name is Colin McFarland, and I am going to be your host today, and we have a really exciting episode for you today. One of my best friends, actually my son's godfather, is here in studio with us today, Nicholas Runyon. Now, Nicholas is a man of many talents and a man of many expertise, so we've been trying to get him on the calendar for a little while here, and I've just been racking my brain. Do we talk about physical fitness? Do we talk about, he's big into stuff like Criminal Minds with me. Should we just do a huge breakdown on Mindhunter, something like that? And we landed on something that we think is going to be beneficial for everybody. We're going to be talking about an epidemic amongst young men and adolescent boys coming up into kind of this next generation here, and the lack of mentorship and leaders that they have growing up in their homes. Nicholas is a counselor. He graduated from Denver Seminary with a degree in counseling, and he does all sorts of awesome stuff. And he has some really, really cool insight into the subject here. So you're not going to want to miss out on this. Then we have a really, really fun segment for you guys at the end. So stick around. And without any further ado, here's my conversation with Nicholas. So how is it having the week off so far?
This week, not bad. Not bad. The weather's been nice. Yeah, that's been really nice, especially at work, that we're not sweating quite as much.
Yeah. So when will client load pick up again? Hopefully.
Hopefully, it typically picks up right around school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that parents will see, oh crap, my kids haven't done anything all summer. Now they're gonna have to dive back into school. Why don't we just mold it all into one and get them back into therapy also? Is
there a change of behavior pattern that parents kind of tend to notice with that? Like, hey, they're off doing their own thing during the summer, and then once they're kind of at home more, they're like, oh yeah, this thing is important, type of a thing?
I feel like it's gotta be similar to seeing kids or having their kids do whatever they want all summer.
Yeah.
And then being told you have to go to school. And what kid likes that? Like, what kid actually enjoys that? Most kids are like, no, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, how I want to do it.
That's fair. That's fair. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you here today. I know you and I have talked about this off mic in the past a bunch of times, and I've heard a bunch of different iterations of this coming from a bunch of different sources. So I'm just excited to get your perspective on it. As two young men talking on a podcast here, I think this is really applicable. So we're going to dive in, and we're talking about an epidemic among young men and adolescent boys. So Nicholas, this is going to be fun, man. I asked you what topic you wanted to cover today, and this was the first thing you sent over, and I was like, this is very interesting. So how did you first become really aware that this was kind of running rampant?
Yeah, a few ways. You see on social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, basically just online, you're seeing an uptick in content just for men, I think. So you think like The Art of Manliness, you think Man Therapy, that's actually created here in Colorado, and one that I just found recently on YouTube that's called Dad, How Do I? And it's a guy that actually, I don't think he had a dad, so he now makes YouTube videos teaching you how to, like, basically a lot of household stuff, like how to unclog the toilet or how to like mow the grass. Really simple things that for him, he didn't have a dad, and so he didn't have anybody to actually teach him those
things.
Tie a
tie and change your oil.
Yes, exactly.
I actually, in true millennial fashion, I downloaded TikTok as a joke, and now I can't stop. And I actually think I found his channel through his TikTok channel.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, so that's one way, is that just noticing there's a big uptick in content specifically for young men, boys growing up. That's one way. Also in my psychotherapy private practice, I see primarily adolescent boys and men. So anywhere, kind of the youngest I typically go is around 14 up to 25 to 30 with adolescents stretching out. I see it there mostly like in action, where I see moms bringing their boys into counseling. There's nothing in and of itself wrong with that, but like it's never dads.
Sure.
Dads are never there.
Okay. I'm interested in why 14. Is there some sort of an cognitive change around 14 years of age that you kind of notice where they tend to have a little bit more grasp on self, where you can kind of work through a couple different things? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, there are other people that see younger than that. My cutoff is like 14 or 15.
Just because of the areas that you specialize in?
Yeah, and typically prior to that, there's only like a 10-year-old can't yes, they can think abstractly, but it's a little bit harder to have that conversation that it's like, well, what exactly was going on in that scenario? Like trying to have them zoom out a couple thousand feet to see the bigger picture. 14, 15 seems to be around the age where kids can start doing that a little bit better.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And they haven't had enough life dumped on them yet where they can't not do it.
But typically,
maybe a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, this is a really interesting subject for me to start thinking about as well, just because I have not to timestamp this too much, but I have a 9-month-old.
Right.
And I had a really present dad for the most part, even though my parents were split. So this is an interesting topic to just kind of just think about, because I've got a couple friends that fall into this category too. So how did your passion behind it start?
You know, getting into the mental health field, I used to joke with people and say, if I could just sit at coffee shops and talk to people all day and get paid for it, I would do that all day, every day. Turns out, in and of itself, that's not a career field.
Unless you're sitting at the Starbucks writing a screenplay, letting everyone know of the screenplay you're writing.
Right, exactly.
There we go.
Right. And that would probably necessitate a move to LA. So I got my undergrad in psychology in the Southeast, moved out here, went to Denver Seminary to get my master's degree in clinical mental health. And it actually wasn't until the end of my program and really starting to work in the field that I wanted to narrow down working with adolescents. Prior to that, I was like, nope, never working with kids. Not going to happen. And then turns out who I work with a lot now.
Oh, that's so funny. It's on our women's podcast channel. We have Stacey Ludwig, who's the host over there, and her daughter, just made me think of the story, is I think she's 19 or 20, and she had the same attitude where she's like, oh, little kids, and she's working at a summer camp this year teaching film. And I think it's kind of a lot of what you've been describing, where they're starting to kind of really develop into their own creatively. And she's like, oh, I can work with this, like as soon as they start really displaying some more independence and some more cognitive thought processes that are a little more tending towards that adult mindset. She's like, oh, I can actually connect with you on these pieces.
Right. So when I was in grad school, I did my internship at CCU over in Lakewood and learned is around that age that, especially within therapy, I think that's when you have a lot of opportunity to change the course of someone's life. So they're coming in, they're moved out of the house. In many cases, their first time away from home. And so they're being able to experience the world in a different context. With that comes different relational dynamics because their family isn't there. Their parents aren't there telling them what to do, making the decisions for them.
It's when you discover you have a roommate and you go, what do you mean you don't know how to do laundry?
Right. So I think what's cool now is that I'm being able to intervene a little bit earlier while kids are still at home. So that's one of the reasons I really enjoy working with adolescents, is that it's a prime time opportunity, I think, for kids to learn skills while they are still at home with their family that will, my hope is, only benefit them in the future once they move out.
So in talking about kind of intervening with the adolescents there and developing those role models, do you specifically focus on kind of that male-to-male role model just because of how that's perceived within culture? Or is it more so just having someone to look up to?
I think right now it's having someone to look up to.
Just having that positive influence in the life kind of regardless.
Right. And like I said earlier, that like moms are typically very involved. That comes with its own baggage. And there are plenty of families where there's either a single mom or dad travels a lot, so dad just really isn't in the picture. That's not so much the people I'm talking to right now because they're a little bit constrained in that. Fortunately, there are, like we mentioned earlier, the art of manliness, the man therapy, like dad, there's still plenty of content that moms can give to their boys to say, hey, here is a masculine influence. Not trying to downgrade feminine influence at all. It's just different. I think we need a little bit of both.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really important. Who are some of the guys that you had in your life that helped shape either this need for role modeling that you kind of look back on and you're like, you know what, that was a really good piece for me?
Yeah. There are a couple throughout the years. It's really interesting. I'm the kind of person, I tend to be a little bit more reserved with my opinions, and I don't share them very willingly. So the people that I've been drawn to, especially men throughout the years, are the people that in some ways can be kind of jerks because they throw their opinions out